So where are the others?
Well, no others.
Well, you know, you can trust me. I'm a friend. Who'd you make the journey with?
I left my husband and family. It was just me and the Lord.
Well, I don't know if you know how extraordinary this is, but by some miraculous means, you have made it 100 miles to freedom, all by yourself. Would you like to pick a new name to mark your freedom? Most ex-slaves do. Any name you want.
They call my mama Rick, but her name Harriet. I want my mama name and my husband. Harriet Tubman.
How did you first get involved in this one, and what was it that appealed to you about it?
So I was still in The Colour Purple on stage at Broadway when Daniela Taplin-Lundberg and Deborah Martin Chase came to see me. I didn't know they were in the audience, and then I got a call from my agent maybe like the day after asking if I would sit with Deborah Martin Chase to talk about a script that she had. And I said yes, because Deborah Martin Chase is a legend and she's amazing. So I sat with her, and she was talking about a script that had been put on the shelf for a while, and now she was attempting to make it into a feature film, and she was ready to do it, and she felt like I was right for the role. And I asked what the role was, and she said it was Harriet Tubman, and I almost fell out of my seat because I had no idea that that's what she was going to say, and I was so heavily in The Colour Purple on stage that I didn't know that this would come around. I had no expectation, and the reason I wanted to be a part of it is because I had heard of the story. I knew the story of Harriet Tubman in broad strokes, and I understood that it had taken way too long to get to this point to tell it, and I didn't want them to have to wait any longer to tell the story, I think. And I didn't want to have to wait any longer to see the story. I felt it was time.
This film's been in the works for quite a while, it seems. At what point did you come on board to this?
About 2.5 years ago.
Right, okay.
Yeah, they've been trying to the producers have been trying to put the film together for about 5 years, you know, with determination. And the original script was written 20 years ago.
Wow.
So think about that, and it sat at Disney for a while. And then, so I've been on it a relatively short amount of time.
Obviously, she's a very famous name, and everyone kind of knows roughly at least what she's famous for. How much of the kind of detail did you know before you got involved about her story?
I didn't know very much of the detail of it. I knew the broad strokes. I knew that she had run 100 miles to freedom herself, and then had gone back to carry people who are enslaved to freedom. But I didn't know the finer details in between. I didn't know about her whole family life. I knew about her husband. I knew she was married to John Tubman, but I didn't know how that had ended. I didn't know that they were deeply in love, and that for her, she had gone back for him. That was the first thing she had gone back for. And I felt like that was a really important thing to know, that she had gone back originally for her husband, and when she was heartbroken and realized that it wasn't going to work and he had found another wife, had to figure out what to do next, and chose to bring more people back, so essentially put herself in more danger. That to me is sort of incredible.
I didn't really know anything about Harriet Tubman. Growing up here, I wasn't really taught about her in school, and I'm not sure she's part of the curriculum or the syllabus, and so I knew of her name, and knew a little bit about her, but not much. And so it was just, first and foremost, it was just an amazing story about an amazing person who obviously everyone in America knows about and is kind of taught about from day one, as you'd expect. But it was about being part of that story in a film that hadn't been shown before about her life with a great group of people.
Was it a slightly daunting story to tell?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it was really how I judged my interest was, but it was like part terror, and part excitement. And I thought, okay, there's something worth doing,
It must be a very exciting role to take on, but surely a daunting one as well, because she's such a pivotal figure in that abolitionist movement.
Yeah, and I think it's not so much that it's daunting, but I'm so aware of the responsibility that I have to tell the story in the best way possible and in the truest way possible. So I guess that's where it feels daunting, just knowing that I have a huge responsibility to make sure that the story's told well. But there's an excitement and a thrill when something does make you nervous, because, if things are easy, then it's probably not as, interesting at all. And I think challenge is where I thrive the most.
From your point of view, what do you think the most important elements of Harriet's story to get across were to you?
There are a lot. I think her resistance, the resistance, the being willing to fight and die for freedom, that's a super important concept. And as a young woman, what she was able to do and what she was able to risk to be free, that's probably the most important thing to me.
How do you do? How do you do? Good. We're confident, composed, wise enough to know not to look a strange white man in the eyes. You don't want no trouble. And trouble comes. You'll be ready. You'll be ready.
Some films can obviously be a very tough shoot physically. This seems like a very tough shoot.
It's a very tough shoot.
Emotionally as well.
And physically.
What were and physically as well? I heard there was a lot of rain during the production. So what were the most challenging sequences to get right on this film?
Oh my God. There were a lot. It was so much. But the river crossing was extremely challenging. It was about 38 degrees, and you got actors in the water, and the freedom seekers ran through a beautiful shot that's in the movie and ran into a nest of ground hornets, which immediately flew up their period costumes and stung them all. And then in an angry wave, it went and stung the crew, and people had to go to the hospital. It's just like the elements and the wildlife were a real thing. But it just made us think, what did they go through? These, we could get in warm cars and what these people went through in the quest for freedom, pursued, and walking through the rain and not knowing exactly where you're going, following the stars, in the woods at night. Because Harriet actually, as it turns out, did all of her work in fall and winter, when the nights were longest, which makes perfect sense.
Right.
But imagine you're cold in the woods and you're afraid, and you've got miles and miles to go.
It's a very inspirational story, but a very harrowing story as well at times. What was the kind of toughest sequence or scenes to shoot, did you find?
Probably the moment where Harriet finds out that her husband has married another woman after she's come back to get him. It's in that barn at Thompson's Mill, and it's the two of them, and he has her face in his hands, and they're just looking in each other's eyes, just desolate and brokenhearted. That was tough because, after a while your body doesn't know that it's not real, so you're telling the story over and over again, and you're repeating the heartbreak and you're repeating the loss, and so it was tough, yeah.
Probably the moments when Gideon is with Harriet, which is at the beginning and at the end, but probably particularly at the end. And physically, there was just a lot of rain, a lot of dates shopping and changing, a lot of horse riding, a lot of running around the woods. But I can't really complain. It was mainly Cynthia who had to kind of bear the brunt of that, and she was amazing. I think she'd been signed on for something like a year and a half, 2 years before anyone else, so she was really ready to go and had just trained so hard, both emotionally but also physically, to be able to run around every day and do that. She was, formidable.
Why you back here? It ain't safe.
I come to get you. Bring all of you to freedom.
Do you know what would happen if you got caught? You got lucky, Harriet.
I made it this far on my own, so don't you tell me what I can't do.
Harriet, welcome to the Underground Railroad. Everybody, everywhere is looking for you.
God don't mean people to own people. Find this thief and burn her at the stake.
Harriet!
with every last drop of blood in my veins until this monster called slavery is dead. Ready?